picture on stand for. So give us everybody that. We'll not. So the other side that's.
And traffic. I hope so. I should try it, like the post. I'm sure.
That's not.
No, did you see it?
Still, like, even now, it's still not yet. You might try to see the very little help. Obviously, you can also get all that. Like, but,
It's from the lives of it's wow. No, I wasn't actually dangerous, you're sure. That's the word like she's and trying to they say have been good. They've already those together.
They don't put it back, but yeah, that's not a refrain, but I see that. Plus, I have to pay for all. Those forwards is. It's nice. Six years. That's my work. August 6, 2025, P&Z meeting. Religious. The United States of America and state of the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for public participation. If you wish to address the commission, please fill out a public meeting minutes card in the back and present it to the town secretary, preferably before the meeting begins. Pursuant to section 551.007 of the Texas Government Code, that citizens wish to address the commission for items listed as public hearing will be recognized when public hearing is open. Citizens wishing to speak on a non-public hearing item, they may either address the commission during the public participation portion of the meeting or when the item is considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Is there anybody who wants to speak to something that's not on the agenda?
We have one turn-in.
You have one?
Yes, sir. We have one turn-in for item number 3 on the agenda. Kathy Dawn.
You want to speak now? Or you want to?
That's way together.
Okay. Discuss and consider the approval of the June 4th, 2025 Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting minutes. Anybody? Have anything?
I'm making a motion to accept them that, as is.
Second? Wait a second. All in favor? Passed. Unanimous. Discuss and make a recommendation regarding the final plat for a 32.025 acre property situated in the J. Burke Survey Abstract 42 in the town of Bartonville, Denton County, Texas. The property is located near the southeastern corner of Broom Road and Porter Road in Bartonville, Texas. The applicant is McAdams Inc. on behalf of Philip R. and Martha S. Weiss, town of Bartonville, file number FP 2025-002. Staff, down, what, Ryan?
Okay, hopefully that, there we go. That looks good. Thank you, Sherry. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Ryan Wells. I'm the town planner. I will be giving a staff presentation for the Rice Ranch final plat. This is Town of Bartonville project number FP 2025-002. So this is a proposed final plat that would create 5 residential lots from 2 existing lots on the property. 3 of those lots would be 2 acres in size and 2 would be equal to or greater than 10 acres. The minor plat for 4 adjacent lots along Broome and Porter were approved by the city in September of 2024, and as you might recall, just a few months ago in June, the preliminary plat was approved with conditions, with recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Commission by Town Council. So that, of course, leads to the creation and submittal of the final plat to finalize the process. So the property in question is 32.029 acres in size. Again, right now it's 2 original lots that are quite large. And it's located on the southeast corner of Broome Road and Porter Road. So for a final plat, we have 4 approval criteria that we look at from the Bartonville development ordinance. Number 1 is whether the final plat conforms to the approved preliminary plat and other studies and plans. So in general, the preliminary plat is matched by the final plat, although there were some adjustments made as recommended or required by Town Council and the conditions of approval on the preliminary plat. In my review, most of those conditions of approval have been adequately met in the submittal of the final plat. So criterion 1 is met. And we'll talk about why I say most instead of all, because there are some lingering conditions that can be met at the tail end of this process. Criterion 2 is that complete engineering and construction plans have been submitted. In this case, there are no public improvements required to fulfill this plat, so that is really not an applicable criterion in this case. Criterion 3 is that the plat conforms to applicable zoning and other regulations. So this property is actually split zoned along the western side of the property. It's zone RE2, and that was approved by Town Council a few years ago. Where all those 2 acre lots are shown, that's all RE2 with a 2 acre minimum lot size. To the east of that line, the property is still zoned agriculture, and so in the ag zone, you have 10 acre lots, which meets the minimum lot size for that zone. So in both cases, those district standards are met, as well as all the setbacks. Now, one of the conditions of approval from the preliminary plat was they needed to increase the setbacks from 20 to 50 feet. They did that, and that's reflected in this final plat. And then there are some conditions of approval that they would that I'm recommending to you that would require some utility easement placement and relocation so that there's not overlapping of utility easements. And finally, there's a criterion that the plat needs to be reviewed by the licensed sanitarian before it goes to recordation. That has not been done yet as far as we know, and so that is a remaining condition from the preliminary plat that carries over to the final plat. Essentially, as I'll say in a moment, that will need to be done before the final plat can be recorded. So with that, after evaluating against the criteria, the staff recommendation is approval of the final plat with conditions, which are as follows. Number 1 is that prior to recordation of the final plat, the plat and accompanying materials shall be reviewed and approved by the registered sanitarian. That's kind of what I just mentioned. It needs to go to them to make sure that all the lots can be adequately served by a septic system. Number 2, there's a water line easement on the plat that needs to be labeled as 25-foot water line easement or WLE by this plat. Having that language on there states that the plat actually establishes that easement is not existent. Number 3 is that prior to the recordation of the final plat, there's a gas power line easement that needs to be shown on the final plat. It was shown on the minor plat, but it didn't carry over and wasn't reflected on the preliminary plat. So when I was reviewing everything in this review, I found that that was missing. So I just need to add that to the plat before it gets recorded. It's not going to affect buildability necessarily. It's not going to affect the legitimacy of the lots and as it's showing here, but it just needs to be on there for completeness sake. Condition 4 is that prior to recordation, the 25-foot water line easement to be established by this plat, referenced in condition 2, needs to be located to the east of the 30-foot, I think it's gas and power line easement along Porter Road. Right now they're overlapping, so you can't have a public water line within an easement for a private utility. Because what somebody's gonna go in there and muck something up, you know, so they have to be adjacent, but they can't be overlapping, so they just need to shut, scoot it over a little bit. It's still within the building setback, it doesn't really affect anything, it's just. For the completeness of the plat, finally, there's just a minor correction, there was a typo in note 8. And of course, this came out of the town council meeting. Gated driveway shall have a gate or present a call lot located no less than 55 feet from the edge of the road. Make sure somebody's pulling in with a trailer, they're not sitting out on the road while they're waiting for the gate. So those are the 5 recommended conditions that I bring to you tonight with my recommendation of approval conditions. Happy to take questions now or after, if the applicant's gonna give a presentation or anything like that. Thank you.
Can you kind of bring me up to date on your map? I'm looking, I see one big lot, the two acre lots on the original. These other lots that are along the border there, are they included in what we're looking at?
That's a good question. So I actually misspoke. There were 3 lots created with the minor plat. Okay, these 3 right here. Those are not part of this plat. Those are existing established lots that were recorded with the minor plat. That left all of this property here as 2 lots. And there's the original lot line right here. Right here. And so what they're doing, they're reconfiguring those lot lines as well as creating these 3 lots here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots actually created in this plat. Does that clarify your question?
Anybody else have a question?
Just a clarification. On number 5, the gated driveway shall have a gate. Could that be construed just because of the verbiage that everybody has to put in a gated, fence off their whole property and put in a gated opening with that 55 when it says shall like that?
No, I think the general interpretation would be that if there's a gate there, then that gate needs to be set back 55 feet.
And I know that's what it means.
Yeah.
The reason that came up is because
I know.
we asked them to put, if they could have driveways on the other side, and the driveways all, you had dangerous hills. So that was why we added that.
I know. What I'm asking is the way it's written, would it make someone who buys those properties feel that they have to have gated when it says shall, as opposed to if I don't want a fence and gate it, then I don't have to, which is what I want them to understand. If this is common verbiage on that, then I'm okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
It's the same language we used for the Nice Landing project that had the requirement for, in this case, it was a gated access to the whole development. And we required that to be set back 55 feet, but because each of these lots abuts an existing right of way. I think the conditional language is gated driveways, so if the driveway is not gated, then none of that would apply.
Okay, as long as they don't think they have to.
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
Anybody else? If someone wants to speak to this?
I don't have any.
Get a motion.
Get a lot. I move that we recommend to council passage of this final plat with the recommended conditions requested by state.
Second,
I'll second.
now second. All in favor? Okay. And now, a public hearing to hear public comment, discuss and make recommendations to the town council regarding site plan amendment. Guidance preparatory academy located at 64 Macon Road in the town of Martinville. The amendment consists of changes to the landscaping plan, the commercial property. The applicant is Catherine Taylor, town of Martinville, file number SP 2025 001. Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is the staff presentation for the guidance preparatory guidance site plan amendment. Town of Bartonville file number SP 2025-005. So this had the history, so I'm gonna step back in a moment, just kind of start where it started, and that brings us to tonight's meeting. So back in May of 2024, I was notified as the town planner at the time that there had been observed some loss of the vegetation that was on the property that was part of the original landscape plan that was approved by the town back in the day. So because the landscaping plan hadn't been adequately maintained, we had to write a zoning code violation letter just stating that that had been observed, and that was the site provided citations from the code and, you know, what was being referenced. But in the letter, so because of that, the activities on the ground, they had lost 11 Leland cypress trees and 12 Platania trees. 12 Platania trees were located on essentially the west side of the masonry screening wall. Those ultimately ended up being in a utility easement, and then when the utility company came in to do maintenance, they removed those trees because you can't actually put trees in utilities. And back then, I think some of you might remember, there was a concern about having the Platania trees in the utility easement. Nonetheless, they got approved that way, and that kind of created a conflict. The Leland cypress trees had, from what we understood, died over time because they were located within the leach field of a septic system, and that's not a good situation for Leland cypress. So they had died off as well. In the letter, the town had provided 3 options for correction of what was a zoning code violation. First was just replant the trees as shown in the approved landscaping plan, just come bring it back to normal, and it was all good. Of course, there are some, you know, conditions on the ground that would make that rather difficult. Option 2 was to submit a site plan amendment with an alternative planting plan. And option 3 was to submit a variance request to permit a reduction in the planting requirements on this site. Okay, so those were the 3 options in the May of 2024 letter. In July of 2024, the business owner, property owner submitted a variance request. That went to the Board of Adjustments. The request was to allow just the planting of 3 45-gallon, 12-foot high live oak trees at 20-foot spacing, essentially along the McMakin, in lieu of fulfilling the original planting plan. Again, they made the argument that we can't put the trees back where they were before because they're just gonna either be removed or die again. That would be futile. Ultimately, though, the Board of Adjustments voted 5-0 to deny the variance request. So they had to go back to the drawing board. And so that's what brings us to the site plan amendment tonight, which is really just a requested amendment to the landscaping plan. We'll get into the evaluation of that in a moment, but just again, to recap the conditions on the ground, this is a 4.221 acre piece of property. It's a single parcel located at the southwest corner of Post Oak Lane and McMakin Road, and it's zoned rural business. So the site plan amendment before you tonight is a request to amend the site plan, specifically the landscaping plan that was approved with the original site plan, to address existing site constraints and the lost trees. Again, per the applicant, the lost Platania and Leland cypress trees just can't be replaced as they were in the original plan. And so this was a little bit of a unique situation because they presented 2 options for consideration. And so it wasn't just, this is what we're gonna do, but hey, we'd like to do one of these things. What would you guys be receptive to? And so in the staff summary, summarize those options, but also provide staff recommendation on what the appropriate plan of action would be to fulfill this requirement. So option 1, as presented by the applicant, is to permit the removal of the removed trees, leaving them off there, and recognize that there's a brick wall on the west side of the property, providing a visual screen, and there are also trees on the neighboring property that do fulfill a screening requirement. This option also would recognize 14 trees on the property that are not on the original plan, but have been planted over time and provide a certain amount of canopy on the property. Option 2 is kind of recognize everything in option 1, but also they are offering to plant 5 more oak trees And the locations indicate on that image in the red. Those are outside of the leach field and outside of the utility easements. And then also recognizing those 14 trees on the property. And there are actually other trees on the property from the original landscaping plan that bring it up to a certain number that we'll cite in a moment. Within this option, they also show kind of what I call option 2A. They also want to add some boulders along Post Oak Lane, just to prevent vehicular access and try to create a barrier along that roadway. So Martinville zoning ordinance section 18.6K lists the landscaping requirements for non-vehicular open spaces within the rural business zoning district. Based on the open space acreage of the property and percentage of open space related to the property as a whole, 25 landscaping trees are required. There's a calculation you have to do to kind of get to that. Again, the site is constrained by the regulatory floodway, which goes through the middle of the property. You cannot put anything in that floodway. The septic leach field, and then of course the utility easement on the other side of the brick wall. So a lot of things going on there that make the areas available for planting very difficult and very limited. So our evaluation and recommendation is that options 2 and 2A combined are the best option to rectify the tree loss described in the zoning code violation letter from 2024. Given the constraints of the site, we found that there are actually 21 existing trees on the property, both identified in the landscaping exhibit, plus those 14, including those 14 that are shown that weren't in the original landscaping exhibit but had been planted over time. Plus the 5 additional oak trees, that actually represents 26 trees. The code says you have to have 25, so they're meeting the numerical requirement of the code through this amendment, if that's what's approved by town council ultimately. Again, this would be a reduction from the original plan, but it still meets the standards. And based on my review of the original approved site plan and the septic system design, aerial and street view of the property, there's not really too many other options that this property owner has, and so I think this does represent probably the best case to try to meet the zoning standards of the city, while recognizing the site constraints. So with that, my recommendation, staff recommendation is to approve the amended site plan with conditions. There's 4 of them here. One is no tree shall be planted within the regulatory floodway or public right of way. Number 2 is that should the site plan amendment be approved by town council, at that point, this revised site plan would need to be updated and prepared by a licensed landscape architect, showing the 5 proposed live oak tree plantings and placement of landscape boulders. So, and that would actually be reviewed by staff. It wouldn't have to come back through you guys. We just make sure that it does what it says it's gonna do, kind of a conditions met review. Now, one thing I want to point out, again, this will be after approval of the site plan and then by town council. I read the code and actually it says that the landscape plan needs to be prepared by somebody who has knowledge of landscaping principles. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a landscape architect, it could be a landscape designer or, a landscape installer. So I just want to make that point that the language here says landscape architect, but I think that the town would probably be willing to but interpret that as one of the professional groups in the code that, in the cited section. Number 3 is that new tree planting shall not take place until after October 1. That's simply just to ensure survivability. You're not gonna put a tree in the ground right now, that would be a bad idea. And then number 4, new trees shall be irrigated, again, to support survivability. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Could you put the map up that shows the 14 trees that are there now? Or that have been?
Yeah, so this is the figure that was provided by the applicant. The trees in green are the ones that were not on the original plan, but have been added over time, over the years. And typically would count when you're doing a tree count. There are some original ones that are on the site that I verified through an aerial image review, and so there's actually 21 trees on the site right now, which is the 7 that are not shown but were on the original landscape plan that survived, and then the green ones are all the other new trees that are on the site right now, but that weren't counted in the original listing up there. So the red ones, the 5 red trees are the additional live oak trees that they are offering to plant in option 2.
And the wall is at the top,
It's at the top,
okay.
and you can see there's the, I can't point to it, but there's the wall here, and then the Petitia from the original landscape plan right here, those are all gone. The Leland cypress right here, those are all gone because of the leach field and whatnot, so. And it was operating correctly for a time, so that probably has something to do with it too.
Thank you.
Does the applicant here? Do you wish to speak?
I'm happy to answer questions or give any information you might need.
Questions?
I think in lieu of the formal process, and I recognize and respect the formal process, but we would really love to just be able to figure this out and
Come up and state your name.
sorry. Catherine Taylor, Catherine Taylor, guidance prep, my husband Mark. As I mentioned, I respect the formal process. What happened in the Board of Adjustments meeting was, we went through a presentation similar to this, and then the group adjourned, and there was discussions that happened that we weren't privy to, so we would like this to be just an open conversation, because we're willing to do whatever you all want done to make it right. We just need to know, and we weren't permitted to ask questions in that Board of Adjustments process, and so I would love to just hear your thoughts or your recommendations, or if you'd like us to propose changes, we're happy to accommodate.
Anybody have any questions?
I don't have a question, I would just make a comment. I live semi-close.
Mhm.
And I know people that live very close. And I think the big issue is they want more of a barrier other than just the wall.
So I did bring photos, if you have the ability to pull these up, I brought photos of the view from the backside of our building looking into that neighborhood, so that you can see that there is no visibility right now, you can't see.
Your building is 1 story and the homes behind that are 2 story. So there is literally looking up into homes, windows.
With all due respect, from my height and the heights of the children there, we can't see into windows.
So talking several hundred yards.
Okay. 6:56. Anybody can speak? Or
Yeah,
Again,
we do have one person that wanted to speak.
I just wanna speak my mind
or against?
Yes.
against someone.
Anybody else want to speak? Or? No, okay.
Okay, Kathy Dawes, 1590 Post Oak Lane, Bartonville, Texas, 76226, and I am the immediate neighbor that she feels constantly complains against her. Okay, my main concern is in 2008, there was a facilities agreement, and I would like them to have to stick to that facilities agreement as much as possible. Because I do believe that that facilities agreement made them plant the Leland cypress there, and the petunias closer to the wall than what they get. That wall's only like 6 foot, so unless you're standing directly by the wall, you can't see over. I think it's quite interesting as far as the pictures that they chose. I think were somewhat selected specifically from that angle, because if I sit in my living room looking out the window, I can see all kinds of. Okay, I can see a lot. I can see their building, I can see all kinds of stuff. So the fact that they can't see my thing, I think they just chose that location to take those pictures. The second thing I don't like is that they say the wall is the barrier, and then there's 14 trees on the other side, or however many trees on the other side, but those are my trees. Those were planted because they didn't do what they were supposed to do, and I wanted some kind of protection. I don't like the idea that they're counting my trees as part of their protection. Okay, I can go cut those things down if that's gonna make it any different and replant them after they have to do their plan, but I'm not going to do that because that's not the kind of person I am, but I would like for them to have to honor a little bit more than me have to do it because they didn't. In the thing, it states that they wanted a living wall. I do believe when Keith Acton was developing it, we did have a living wall. And I do believe it died because it wasn't maintained. And I know the neighbor that lived behind me that no longer lives behind me, quit maintaining it, when she had a $600 a month water bill. And I didn't think that was fair to push that off on her to do it, and I refused to do it, so everything died. therefore the wall is there. So that, I do believe we had a living wall at one time. So, and I do also believe that no matter what we put there, it's not gonna keep the noise from the kids there. And I know that the noise from the kids there will never probably get your decibel reading to be a sound barrier problem. But it's a little frustrating that during the really nice times of the year when you like to have your windows open, they seem to have a constant recess. Okay, it's nice and the kids are out there. When it's not nice and it's really super hot or really super cold, the kids aren't out there playing, so therefore you don't hear them. But when it is nice, and I am an open window person, you know, you hear that constantly. And then now on the weekends, not every weekend, but on occasional weekends, they have soccer games, rugby matches, scrimmages, practices, or something that now it's a weekend problem too. But like I said, I know that's not gonna hit your decibel barrier and cause the problem, but it's just kind of frustrating. You know, and then sometimes, and they haven't had it in a while, they have jump houses and stuff like that during the summer, which is a eyesore. And you can see that, I don't care what they have there and where they take their pictures from, that is visible. So, you know, that's my complaint. I would just like to go back to the 2008 facilities agreement landscape plan and make them withhold to that as much as they can. Now, I get that they can't plant them where the Leland cypresses were because they have the leach fields there, and I'm sure the leach field is now a lot bigger than it was because they have had nothing but constant septic problems. But I do think that they can move it further south. Okay, you can't probably put anything from the road to the first gate, but I think after the second gate, there's plenty of room to plant stuff, and that would really help the neighborhood, you know, as far as site and everything. So, you know, that's mostly, I think, what I want to say. I do think that, you know, that possibly if they would have used a better plan when they put their leach fields in there and gone north-south instead of east-west, it probably would have been better, and they could have planted more over there, but, you know, that's, you know, neither here nor there, because it's already done. Okay, I would also like to,
Mr. Chair, your time is up, unless you want to extend it,
that's fine, that's pretty much, I just wanted to make a comment about the party and the donuts. That was, I felt like she insinuated that was us, that was not me. Okay, that might have been someone from our neighborhood, I don't know, but she indicated the neighbor, and I'm always indicated as the neighbor, and I just want to make it very clear, that was not my son. Okay.
I do have a question for you. Boulders that they want to put up, is that cause a county problem at all?
Actually, when I met with them, and they had some signs, that we had too many signs over there for them trespassing, that was a recommendation I said that they could do. We've used it in Hudson Hills, we've used it around this, you notice a lot of places, because of the way we don't have the curbs, it protects your property.
Okay.
So I actually made that recommendation to them, they look good, and that will prevent them from a truck going in and destroying their property, like the pictures that they did come and show. So yes, sir, that was a recommendation that I made.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we weren't approving something that was,
No, it really looks nice out here.
if somebody was going to take the lot, that's their problem.
Yes.
Okay. We were told the public hearing at 7:02.
Should I respond to any of the concerns? Or do you feel like you have enough information?
Right.
I just, I don't, how do I put it? I don't feel as though I have targeted anyone. I feel like that's an unfair accusation. Drawing back to the original plan, which Mrs. Dawn is requesting us to adhere to, the original plan that was proposed by Keith Ackley. I don't know, were any of you in that, or do any of you remember? It's been 17 years ago. It's been so long ago. But Keith Ackley did have on the property prior to us purchasing it, he did have a living wall, and I think there was some type of evergreen, I don't remember, along that side that weren't taken care of. And we offered at the time to replace all those and irrigate and all of that. And there was such animosity between the community and the commercial development that they requested a wall. So we spent $100,000 on that wall to satisfy the community, which wasn't a requirement at the time, but we did it because we wanted to try to just mitigate any type of, you know, concerns about the development going forward and those sorts of things. So I don't feel like, I feel like we're being accused of kind of shortchanging the whole process, and that's really not at all what we're intending. And then back to, if you have the picture of the leach field, Mrs. Dawn is requesting that we put plants along the. I think farther down on either side of the gate, but this shaded area is the entire area that encompasses the leach field. At the Board of Adjustments meeting, one of the town members complained about the geese landing. That had been landing on our field over here, and that there was moisture and puddling and those sorts of things, and so. We contacted an engineer who designed all this, we had no input into how the leach field was designed, it was all done by professional engineers with their recommendations to best support. The facility, so there's really this encompasses that whole area, so we're limited to. This section right here, which is outside of the leach field, we're down here, which is outside, and then this is all, of course, the waterway that we can't plant in. So we just tried to find any open spaces that we could to put trees where there aren't already some existing. So that's. I've also. I don't know what to do about the children laughing. That's not, I don't know how to mitigate that because they're kids and I, to be honest with you, I'm happy to take suggestions though. We truly do want to have this resolved to put, to be good neighbors and to be. To just tone down the whole situation. What else can I share with you? I think that's it.
Anybody have questions?
No.
Ryan, is there any? Where the living wall was supposed to be? That's where the trees came, died, right?
If it was along that corridor, again, there's a utility easement there, and you can't put any. Vegetation or structures within the utility easement, it impairs access to the utilities that it's supposed to provide access to. I mean, I will say that maybe this is a little bit tangential, but generally in most cities that I've worked in, again, there's a landscape plan here that set the bar much higher than what I normally see, which is a 6-foot masonry wall is generally, what's considered adequate as a screen between residential and non-residential. So I'm just putting that out there, but again, this landscaping plan, that's what was kind of vested with the project, so that did set the bar a little bit higher. I don't know anything about the living screen at the time. It's not referenced in the original landscaping plan, so I wouldn't say that that's anything that needs to be enforced.
Thank you.
Just to put this out for everybody, because 3 of us were on P&Z at the time. When the plans were being worked on and submitted to us, we requested a wall. And the reason we did was to protect the residential side. Correct me if you remember this differently. At the time it actually came to us and we made final decisions on it, it was the homeowners in Post Oak that didn't want a wall, which we understood because it's not exactly country. So it was at their request, not because there were anything in the facilities agreement about it, that we switch to a non-wall. And frankly, I was one of the people trying to talk them out of doing that. But because I thought in the long run a wall would be better. And so the final decision was the living wall that was supposed to be kept alive, and of course, that all went down the tubes, so we ended up back with a wall, which frankly, I greatly appreciate that was put in, because I know in the long run that's better for the residents on the other side.
Well, can I make a comment as far as if we had the living wall, would it even work because of the easement? They probably would have had to take it down anyway.
Well, it would have been on our property.
We're done with that. Anybody have any Other questions, comments? Do I have a motion?
I feel like that, you know, you cannot go back to the original plan, you cannot plant trees in that easement there, so. I mean, to me, the only viable solution is to look at option two. And to that, yes.
Is that a motion?
Is that a motion?
I will make that motion with the, those option two and option two,
Should I say?
Questions.
with conditions, yes, the four conditions, yes.
Second. Okay. All in favor? Against? One. One against. Any other? Anything else coming up? Any new items coming up for next month?
There are some, planning items that are gonna be under review and will likely, hit you guys next month or the month after, but. No other major items from the planning side of things.
We had three things, we had three submitted, sorry, I was thinking about something, I said first. But we do have three that were submitted, this will be done. We have, Rick next door Patty Cuts. We have a minor plat. No, the minor plat won't be coming, I'm sorry, and then, what's the other one?
Preliminary plan amendment for first range.
Yes, thank you. We have two. Minor plat won't be coming, go. So we
And
have-
what-
yeah,
Adjourned at 7:11. Okay.
Why?
Yeah. Memory though. I mean, when you started talking, I remember. But I didn't remember until we started talking about it. Yeah, we argued about that a lot.